so much for joining me. My name is Vidya Srinivasan and this is my friend Naomi Monipeni, and we are thrilled that you are joining us here at the SharePoint Spaces session. So we have a lot to cover in the next 44 minutes, so let's dive right in. SharePoint Spaces enables everyone to create immersive and engaging mixed reality experiences on any device. And it is simple, so simple that if you have ever authored a PowerPoint presentation, if you have ever laid out a web page, you now know everything you need to build a fully immersive, beautiful, and functional mixed reality experience. So some of you are like, wait, what? Right? So let me show you how. So imagine that I'm a product creator at this company called Contoso Outdoor Gear, and I'm in charge of putting together this training program to help the sales team kind of get excited about the upcoming holiday season, right? So I want to show them the new line of products and kind of also show the team that was behind these products. Now normally what would we do? We would build a communication site like this one, add a few pages, some images of the products, maybe some videos, and call it done, right? But now with the help of mixed reality, we can add a whole new dimension to this experience. Now I need all of your help to do this demo. So take out your mobile phones, go to the stopwatch, yeah? Hit start when I ask you to. I don't have a number in mind, honestly, but let's see how long this takes. Okay? Hit start when I ask you to, okay? All right, in 3, 2, 1, start. It's too quiet in here. That's how long it takes to build something that is not only beautiful, but also really functional, and I'll show you that part too. Because Spaces is built using open standards, I can interact and view the space on my browser itself. I can actually rotate the models, right? Play, pause the video, and traverse the whole org chart just on my browser. But if I want to kind of get into the experience and enhance my consumption experience even further, all I need to do is tether one of these headsets. What I'm using here is the Samsung Windows Mixed Reality headset, and then click View in Headset. That's it. So you're automatically seeing everything that I'm seeing over here. No GIFs, okay? Okay. You can see the controller coming in.
Windows, right? Turn it off.
Yeah, let's use the other one. Nope.
Windows, right? Shut that down. Boot it in. Launch it again. Come on, controller.
Yep. There you go. So I can rotate this whole document library. This is just a document library full of 3D models. Select one of these products. Go back, play and pause the video, and then again, traverse the entire org chart. Right? It's pretty straightforward. It didn't take a lot of my time, nor any coding skills for me to actually build something that is, immersive and yet functional. So we're going to do a lot more demos today and talk more about every aspect of SharePoint Spaces. But now I want to hand it over to Naomi, who's going to tell you all about what Spaces is and how it fits into Microsoft 365.
All good. All right, thank you so much, Vidya. And I hope you were excited by that demo, yeah? Yes? Okay. Because I heard you all quiet. It must have been the trancy music, of course, because we all enjoy our immersive environments and being able to pick whatever music we can do on top of there. But what I want to showcase is really how Vidya explained that we can build amazing creative environments just with the tools and technologies that you have within Microsoft 365. So I wanted to take a moment just to explain how this connects into what we're doing more generally with Microsoft 365. As you know, this is really part of a strategy that we have that has Windows, as well as Office and enterprise mobility and security. So when we think about this great headset setup, it's really thinking about using the capabilities we have of the operating system in addition to all the great software and suite services we have as part of Office. So when you think about deploying that Microsoft 365 in your environments, you're already setting yourself up for that environment that says, I can have immersive, amazing spaces in the future. So we have these 4 pillars as part of Microsoft 365. And the first one is really centered around teamwork. And teamwork is kind of a great way to think about all of those collaboration environments that we have access to. We can also think about these 5 different scenarios as part of teamwork too. And so when we think about collaborating on files, doing things like basic tasks inside of our companies, like running effective meetings and projects, how we're helping to inform and engage across a huge employee population. You saw SharePoint at the beginning there. We've shown a communication site. That's really one of those hero things that we do for informing and engaging employees across a wide range of people. And then thinking about how we're harnessing collective knowledge. So you saw a video reusing content that you already have, whether it's 2D content or 3D content, and being able to incorporate that as part of it. And then finally, how you're thinking about managing your time and communications and how you can focus on things. So when we think about using something like SharePoint Spaces, it might seem at first like, what's this mixed reality thing? How does it even connect into SharePoint, right? And so you're thinking about how do we involve this as part of everything that we do. We think about that same idea with communication sites. We think about the different ways that you can help use these spaces to inform and engage employees. Thinking about creating immersive environments where we can use them for training and other purposes too. And then thinking about how we might use that to help demonstrate vision and organizational clarity inside of your companies too. The other piece of this is really understanding how we can use this for harnessing collective knowledge. So the wonderful thing is with SharePoint Spaces, I can actually build all of this capability together, reusing content that we already have inside of our environments. So whether that's 3D content, whether it's 2D content, it's something I've authored, maybe I've used Paint 3D, maybe I've done something in PowerPoint, I can reuse that content and actually combine it together with other places too. So I hope that you're seeing that this is really part of that integrated strategy, whether it comes from Windows with your desktop investments, what you're doing with a headset environment, then how you're actually building into SharePoint communication sites, how you're actually leveraging all of this teamwork and collaborative tools that we have as part of Microsoft 365. When we think about this, it's really thinking about the workplaces of the future. And whether that's your intranet or how you might be framing that inside of your company right now, we believe that fundamentally you have these 3 different areas to think about. Intelligence, really looking at AI and how that's helping with everyday productivity and collaboration. You've seen a lot of news this week about how we're building more and more intelligence. And the same thing is true with SharePoint Spaces. You're getting leverage of all the information we have from the Microsoft Graph. It's still part of that great technology suite you have in Office 365 and has the ability to use that innovation as part of it. The other piece of this is how we're engaging you. One of the parts here is to look at, so much noise coming in from our environments. We've got so many sites that we have to look at, so many news articles, all of this different content that we have to have every day. And so how do I engage an employee? How do I make something that might not traditionally be, very exciting, like compliance training or safety training, and actually make it engaging, right? And something that you want to go and seek out. And the other part of this is immersing you. And whether it's immersing you inside of a hub for teamwork, or it's immersing you inside of an actual immersive environment, whether it's 3D objects, where I can actually look at how we can work this for the future. So when we design SharePoint Spaces, we've taken a lot of care to think about how this fits into the whole collaboration stack we have across Microsoft 365. So SharePoint Spaces really is for everyone. We expect all of you and all of your colleagues to be able to build a SharePoint space in the future. We also think about it as being able to empower creators. And whether that's something, whether you use templates, make it easy for people to actually create their own environments, and make it simple for you to reuse things inside of your company, like corporate designs and branding as well. We want to use that in artificial intelligence technology that we have to help personalize that content as well. So you feel like that immersive environment is something that you can connect to and that you're engaged to as part of this too. And the idea of how we can reuse people and content, as you saw earlier with the org chart. And lastly, this idea of integration into this whole suite and the ability to connect in extensibility into other third-party content. So bringing in third-party content you might have from 3D, thinking about a set of APIs in the future and how you can build in extra content too, and then how you can actually use SPFX to actually extend this information as well. So reusing a lot of the work that you've done and take that code into context too. So when we thought about how do you really use SharePoint Spaces, and when we did the announcement back in May, we got a lot of questions about, okay, this is really cool, this is mixed reality in SharePoint, but how do I really use this stuff inside of my organization? And so we've done a lot of work to think about those particular use cases. And I've got 4 of these categories up, and we'll go through those in a little bit of time. But we really threw out these primary use cases around training and education. It seems like a simple one to be able to understand that. How do we actually use these immersive environments to get you into places where you couldn't do before? Whether it's everything from a new employee engagement scenario, or coming in and to a factory floor that you weren't able to interact with, or some unsafe situation that you would not be able to interact with in the real world. The same thing around content catalogs. You know, for things that are too small or too big to be able to scale in the real world really easily, having that idea of how we can share content easily and have a catalog around that too. And then thirdly, thinking about data visualization, those immersive reports where I can actually walk around and interact with my data, right? It's so much more personal than having to look at, you know, boring spreadsheet or looking at a dashboard of information. And then lastly, we think about this idea of virtual tours. And so many of our customers have come to us and said, hey, I want to be able to show people around a manufacturing floor, or take them into a retail environment, or explore new places where we haven't been before. That idea of being able to actually give virtual tours has been a very powerful driver for us too. So I'm going to pause there and let Vidya talk about how we've made some of the decisions we have around SharePoint Spaces.
Great. So before getting into the geeky and fun part of SharePoint Spaces, let's talk a bit about the journey so far, right? Because we started incubating SharePoint Spaces almost 2 years ago, and I am so honored that I was chosen as one of the first members of the team. Because this team was tasked to envision the intersection of SharePoint and mixed reality and the experiences this could bring to life. So our first question was, is this a good idea? Because we started with pretty much a blank canvas, right? And then if yes, then what do we build, right? So we started exploring several scenarios that captured the heart of what SharePoint is really good at across different verticals such as collaboration, communication, business applications, search, right? And then started building prototypes around it using different technology stacks. We then went on a roadshow to get feedback from our insiders, our MVPs, our best feedback providers, you, right? So SharePoint Spaces is backed by tons of market research, customer concept value testing, customer analysis, right? And at one point, it became super clear to us that the concept of democratizing the creation and consumption of mixed reality experiences resonated very well with our users. And it also aligned well to the ethos of who we are as SharePoint. Because if you look at the history of SharePoint, back in the early 2000s, we democratized the creation of websites. Then we democratized the creation of functional pages. Then later on, we democratized the creation of responsive, beautiful, intelligent intranets, and now we are democratizing the creation of mixed reality experiences. And nobody else is solving this problem. And because today, if you have to build something functional and immersive, you have to be skilled in a game engine. You have to know a lot about the physics that goes behind the scenes. So we wanted to mainstream all of this so that everybody can create mixed reality experiences. We then announced SharePoint Spaces. I missed that slide, by the way. That's okay. I told you the story, though. We then announced SharePoint Spaces at SPCNA this past May. And the response was overwhelmingly positive, right? We were so honored and humbled by the support we got from our users as well as from the media. So I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the entire Spaces team to thank you all for supporting us so far, and I hope you'll continue to support us as we innovate further, right? At SPCNA, we also opened for private preview. We started taking applications, and we are currently working with the first set of customers, and we want to gradually expand our private preview program so that we can get more feedback and flight our bits. So if you're interested in providing feedback and being one of the early users to test these bits, do sign up, and we'll be sharing the links at the end of the presentation. So now let's talk about some of the key decisions that we had to take in our journey. And I want to talk about 4 of them here. First, SharePoint Spaces is web-based. It is built on WebGL, right? Specifically WebVR. So we use open standards. So what this means is you can create and view a space on any device capable of running a browser. That means a PC, a Mac, or even a Chromebook. From a framework perspective, SharePoint Spaces is built on Babylon.js. Now, Babylon.js is a 3D engine. It's an open source 3D engine that is again built on WebGL and JavaScript. But Babylon.js is simple, it's powerful, but most importantly, it supports enterprise-grade development, which is of extreme value to us at SharePoint. From a device strategy, I think I made it super clear that you can view and consume a SharePoint space from any device capable of running a browser, as long as you have an SPO subscription, SharePoint Online subscription. But if you want to further enhance your experience, you can tether any 6 degrees of freedom device. So today in the market, you have 3 degrees of freedom devices and 6 degrees of freedom devices. We're starting with the 6 degrees of freedom device because it supports superior quality. Today in market, there are 3 different brands of 6-TOF devices, tethered 6-TOF devices, I would say. So that's the Oculus Rift, your HTC Vive, and your suite of Windows mixed reality headsets. And we support all of those. We are cross-plat. Now your question might be, what about HoloLens? Right? That's a very fair question. So in the spectrum of mixed reality, there's virtual reality on one end and augmented reality on the other hand. We are starting from this and expanding out. HoloLens is a pure AR device. But as the market evolves, as we further understand the scenarios that you'd like to use, right? And as the industry evolves at a broader level, we'll definitely be expanding our device reach as well. Now finally, Spaces fully leverages the power of SharePoint, both from a user experience perspective as well as from the framework perspective. From a UX perspective, one of our key goals from the very beginning was to make this experience simple. That has been our mantra, and that will continue to be our mantra. So that is one of the reasons why we fully leveraged the modern page authoring experience, so that if you have ever authored a page in SharePoint, you'll right away understand what to do and how the different pieces work. And this also helps from a developer perspective because the ecosystem is all the same. Spaces is built on SPFX, SharePoint Framework. So all of the data binding is exactly the same between the 2D web parts and the 3D MR web parts. Right? So you can start building third-party web parts, and they'll automatically show up in the mixed reality authoring canvas as well. Again, we are currently working on some of the foundational aspects of the 3D web parts, and we'll be sharing more information, including hosting some dev kitchens in the next several months. So now that we understood the architectural part of the house, let's break it all down and do some more demos. Yeah? Yay. There you go. So there are 2 different personas. I think that's also clear now. You have the authors and you have the viewers. From an authoring perspective, I want to focus on 3 different things today. I want to focus on environments, I want to focus on the authoring canvas itself, and then the content and interactivity. So once we do this, let's then again talk about how you can view it on the browser and of course the headset. Sounds good? Awesome. Okay. Okay. So Spaces is tightly integrated with the rest of SharePoint, right? So you can create a space from any SharePoint site, new or existing. So this is very similar to you creating a page or a document library, right? You can create a space. So when you do that, what you're seeing here is what we call templates. Now, how many of you here have authored a PowerPoint presentation, right? So when you start authoring a PowerPoint presentation, you first pick a template, and over there the templates define the font family, the color schemes, the layout of the slides, etc. These are very similar to that. Over here, these templates define the spatial geometry, the textures, the lighting, the ambient sound, the skyboxes, right? So it's an easy way for you to get started. We are working on several templates, and what you're seeing over here are the first two. So let's pick this one this time and build a virtual drone tour. So once you pick a template, what you're seeing over here is a 3D authoring canvas built using Babylon, rendering inside your SharePoint page. So you can do a few things. Again, going back to my PowerPoint analogy, what do you do after you pick a template? You go and you customize it, right? You probably don't like the font, or you want to change the color scheme a bit, right? So that's exactly what you can do with environments. So space design lets you customize your space to your liking. You can select different backgrounds or solid colors if that's your preference. You can even select ambient music like I did before, right? So I'm just going to, oh, this is muted, right? So you get the idea. Now, the environments are also defined and designed in a way that they can organically grow. So in the future, you'll be able to import your own 360 pictures as the background. You'll be able to import your own ambient sounds that matter to you. And most importantly, you'll also be able to bring your company branding into it, right? Because you want the space to feel uniquely you. So that's all about environments. So next, I want to focus a bit on the authoring canvas, right? So from an authoring canvas perspective, there is literally one thing you can do on this canvas, which is click on this, right? So there's absolutely no confusion here. There's only one button you can go and click. But what happens when you do that is, and you select a web part, you see that the camera angle changed. Right? The camera angle went from a first-person view to a bird's eye view. So it lets you look at the entire structure, and then it lets you pick a 3D model. Now, these are just 3D models in my SharePoint library. So when you do that, what happens is, it again goes down to first-person view so that you can go and edit it. So what you're seeing here is the bounding box, and you can use that to make it bigger, or you can use the properties pane. Right? So if you want to switch between first and third-person view, you can absolutely do that as well. So let's add another 3D object. Right. Then you can adjust the positions, etc. Now let's say you don't want to deal with all these camera angles and all that stuff. All you want to do is just add content. Well, we got you covered with that as well. So if you go down to space design, you have something called the radial authoring mode. Right? When you enable it, what you're doing over here is the canvas decides where you can position the next object. Right? So you cannot really switch between this, you cannot move the positions, but we determine, or the canvas determines how you can position it, and in this mode it's a radial mode. Right? So all you can do over here is just go select the object that you want to place and then call it done. So that's all about the authoring canvas, right? Finally, I want to talk about content and interactivity. So from a content perspective, if you look at it, this authoring experience is very similar to your page authoring experience, right? Over there, you have 2D web parts. Over here, you have mixed reality capable web parts. The only difference is these understand how to render from a depth perspective, right? So a question that many of you might have is, okay, because this is mixed reality, does it mean I can only add 3D and 360 content, right? Well, that's not true. You can also add images and videos and other kinds of 2D content. You can also add web parts that leverage the Microsoft Graph. For example, this one is pulling in information from the Microsoft Graph. Because we believe that when you combine the power of 3D and 360 content with the availability and flexibility of 2D content, you can do a lot of beautiful things. You can also add text if that's what you want to do, right? And these are, again, just some of the web parts we started working on, but there's a lot more that we are incubating. So if you go to our booth at the expo floor, you can go check out some really beautiful spaces that we built just using SharePoint spaces, and also some of the early technologies that we are incubating, such as data visualization. So from an interactivity perspective, let's talk about that for a second. So every web part comes with a property pane, right? So when I go over here, I can define the title. So I put awesome drone. Well, I can't type. So description is right. So then you can also define the primary and secondary actions on each of these objects. Now, this is also extensible. Because the web part is built, everything is built on SharePoint framework, when you build your third-party web parts, you can define what the primary and secondary actions should be for each of your content. So let's say I want to link it to another space. I'll choose the space and select something that I built before. And then secondary action, let's say I want to inspect it. So that's the case for everything. Every web part will come with its own interactivity components that you can design. So once you're done, all you have to do is, again, hit publish. So that was pretty straightforward. So when you hit publish, what happens is all the security and sharing settings are built in, right? So anybody who has access to this site will have access to this space. Space activity will surface automatically in your SharePoint home and search and your site activity feed. So it will start percolating through the entire SharePoint and O365 ecosystem. But if you want to consume it, so if I hover over this drone, for example, nothing happens because I did not define any metadata or interactivity actions on it. But if I hover over this drone, you can see that it says awesome drone, and I right click, it says it gives me the description, it gives me the primary and secondary options. So I select this, I can now inspect it. It goes into what is called isolation mode, and I can actually rotate this and do all this fun stuff, right? And then when I hit go to space, it actually takes me to another space that I linked. So that was pretty straightforward, and all it took was, again, a few minutes for me to do this, right? So that's the broader ecosystem of authoring and consumption and the different aspects in each of these stages. So now I'm going to hand it over to Naomi again, who's going to give you a few ideas on how to stimulate your creativity on how you too can use spaces in your intranet.
So give me 1 second here. I'm going to bring up our web site that I want you to go to. So I'm hoping this will go over here. So I thought it was easier just to talk through directly from this experience here. So over the weekend, if you were watching Twitter avidly, which I know you all are because you're at Ignite, you might have seen this link go up live. So explore SharePointSpaces.com. And this is a great place to really leverage and learn a little bit about all of the different places that we think you might be able to use SharePoint Spaces. We had amazing announcements, as we said, in May, and we talked about this from a private preview perspective, but we had a lot of customers come back to us and say, well, how am I going to use this? How am I going to integrate this into what we've shown? So hopefully we've demonstrated a little bit in terms of how you'll use this with SharePoint and how you're taking this forward with a lot of the content there. But I wanted to showcase a few different ways that you can actually talk about SharePoint Spaces and think about your planning for the future. So as I mentioned earlier, you're building those digital workplaces of the future. It's really around intelligence, engaging, and immersive environments. And so we think about that in terms of these use cases as well. So for example here, we've got this idea around training and education. So this is a great one around safety training. I used to work in an oil and gas company, and I can tell you that getting dropped off the side of a North Sea oil rig as part of one of the drills that you do there from a safety perspective is not a fun experience. It also really hurts your spine years later, but it's one of those experiences you can do. But simulating that experience within an immersive environment using content that you have already is an amazing opportunity to actually have other people go through that same experience, but also able to get people up to speed very quickly in environments that might be unsafe. So when we think about that from a training and education perspective. We also got a lot of great customers coming forward in terms of academic institutions. So if you're in education, if you're in school, etc., those are great opportunities, again, to think about how do I interact with this content and make it more engaging and immersive as well. And so when we looked at engaging those pieces, we also looked at some other opportunities too. So there's also this idea of being able to, think about the different ways we can take our products and make them more useful. And also getting an idea of, these different pieces around equipment. So oftentimes we have something, again, that's too small or too big to visualize in the real world. So maybe you're doing everything from, heart valves all the way up to selling, concrete installations. And so being able to actually visualize that ahead of time is a really important piece too. So we also thought about this idea around data visualization. And so this is a piece that got a lot of traction in May in terms of being able to look at how we can learn better and actually explore data in a different way. And so oftentimes we think about, the different ways that we might be able to incorporate that as well. So whether that's things like being able to show graphs and charts, but also just being able to explore the data too. We've had a lot of insights in terms of what customers have asked for. So the idea of just being able to get that bigger picture and being able to model how things work, maybe along a supply chain or a demand chain, is also a great place too. When I look at this virtual tours one, this is really about, not just touring around locations and factories, but the idea of actually being able to create immersive environments that might not actually exist in real life. So for example, if I'm a first-line employee and I'm getting trained up in the back of a tiny retail store in a cramped closet, right? The ability to actually have an immersive environment that actually engages me and makes me feel as if I'm in an expansive environment where I can explore a product catalog or I can tour around different facilities or perhaps where my customers may be using our products in real life gives me that empathy with the customer experience that can actually really bring it to life for me too. The same thing in campus orientation, we have that issue for sure inside of Microsoft too. So we've put in a whole range of examples here, and I hope you'll take some time to navigate through and look at this too. The same thing is true for a content catalog. So in this case, we had a lot of car companies, we had yachts, boating companies, all kinds of amazing customers who came through and said, hey, we'd love to use this to visualize our different products too. So we put in some good examples here to help to explain that story too. So we think this is a great opportunity to explain what you would use SharePoint Spaces for, and I hope that you recognize some of those things during this environment too. I'm going to switch it back to PowerPoint mode right now, and let me just, assuming I can actually get the computer to cooperate here. We're going to talk about just one last thing here. So, you want to give questions at the end, or you want to wait? Okay, sorry. Just give us 2 more seconds, and I'll finish up and let you ask all the questions, which I'm sure you have. Okay. There's a couple things here that we wanted to sort of preface here. So when we think about this journey to SharePoint Spaces, how you're getting started, with what you could do with SharePoint content. So specifically in the 3D and 360 content, if you have 360 videos, you have 360 photos, etc., we really ask you to think about using SharePoint as your default strategy for putting that content in. The reason for that is obviously to start prepping so that you have enough information when it comes to build these immersive environments. It's not a surprise and you're gathering a whole bunch of content. So it's something you can do right now is to really start using SharePoint for that 3D content. We also think about going to the modern desktop. Hopefully you've heard that for a couple of different sessions now, and you certainly heard it in the keynotes yesterday. Obviously, when you see those tethered headsets that are going to the desktop, this is native capability in Windows 10, and you're using, headsets in this case with the Samsung, which is, $200-300 each, right? These are not super heavy, extremely expensive equipment. It's expensive, obviously, for lots of employees across the company, but we know it's sort of an inbuilt part of what you can do with Windows. So when we think about that investment into your desktop infrastructure and how you may be looking at that, this is a great way to think about how will I be using that infrastructure in the future, because SharePoint Spaces will be part of what I'm building. And then thinking about how you're planning for your intranet updates. We've put some sort of provisional timeline on here. We're right now going through a private preview with some of our selected customers. We've got some great examples coming up to show what customers are doing with this too, and you see some in that use case catalog. And then in the spring of next year, we're really looking at this as a limited preview. So how we can actually get some of those bits together and actually showcase so you can use them straight away. And we'll have kind of an insiders program for that piece as well. And then we'll get some more input as well from a research perspective. And then this helps you hopefully prep for your intranet, because we really do expect by the fall of next year, so this time next year, you should be using this in public preview inside of your intranets and building your own immersive environments. So fair warning right now, get your content into SharePoint for 3D, get your content into 360, get your desktops in space so that you can actually support these immersive environments and have set headsets so that employees can take the benefit of this as well. We do want your help with some research and experiences too. We have some links out on exploresharepointspaces.com because we do want a canvas to get your input in terms of what you'd like to see as part of the UX, what you'd like to see as templates and extensibility going forward too. And then we do, as Vidya mentioned earlier, we have a great SharePoint Spaces demo. You can go to the immersion zone, which is out in Hall D, I think it is, and there you can actually experience this for yourself and help to build your own SharePoint Spaces too. So I'm going to stop there. We'd love to hear from you on Twitter. Both Vidya and I are on Twitter and up on SharePoint Spaces of the hashtag there. It's a great conversation. I hope this session has been really useful to you and shows a little bit about what you can do and how you can build it. We're really, really excited for the future, and we really look forward to seeing what you'll be able to create as well. So thank you very much. We're happy to take questions for the last few minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, we have about 5-10 minutes. Yes.
So regarding the demo site that we just released,
Yes.
if I buy a VR headset, does that work with a demo site?
So you can see
With,
on
the
browser.
explore-SharePoint-Spaces.com. Yeah, so we put in some assets over there, and you can switch into a VR mode from there.
Okay, so
To explain.
Yeah. But you have to buy a tethered headset. Perfect. Yes.
You want to ask on the mics so that the recording gets the questions?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what this gentleman here too.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah.
go for it.
Do you have any customers on Microsoft Space right now?
Yeah, so we have some customers in limited preview right now that we're working with to actually build some of these use cases that you've seen. So.
Would you mind sharing what you're trying to do with the...
Yeah, sure. So we have all of those 4 examples that I gave you. So things like virtual tours, the content catalogs, those are the things that they're concentrating on most right now. So being able to tour retail facilities, for example, being able to see them across the world, right, wherever you are, looking at content catalogs for a very broad range of items. So thousands and thousands of SKUs that you might be managing as an organization, a manufacturing organization, being able to see all of that content and have it all available to you in immersive space as well.
But the fundamental question is, whatever I could do with the space, I could pretty much do this with the other technologies, right? So why would anybody be spending their efforts and hardware and stuff like that to do in the Microsoft Spaces? So for example, I'll tell you. So there is this YouTube 360 video, and then there is the virtual tours on a lot of the websites that are already there. You can go check the virtual tour on the website. You can see the images in a 3D view and stuff like that. It's already existing. So what's new with this?
Is it where all of your enterprise content is in?
Right.
Your enterprise content is in SharePoint.
Yeah, but when you talk about this enterprise content, right? So how am I going to share this with my external customer-facing website?
Okay, so what we're challenged to build here is an immersive environment, right?
Right,
That
see,
anybody in the company can build this, right?
Right.
Anybody. Nobody right now, I'm betting, apart from maybe some devs in the room right now, can build one of those 360 tours. You have to get special software, special people with special skills. This is about, I can add pages and web parts together and build SharePoint spaces that are 3D and immersive. Those are engaging spaces, whether it's I'm using it for collecting all of my project information together for my team, being able to actually create little labs together and put all of that information in one place so people can experience it, and then actually go through and be able to add it to other spaces that are connected in my company. So the possibilities of how I build these things are endless. It's a different way of communicating, but it is also a very immersive and engaging way of communicating. So right now, it's very hard to get people's attention. You can actually immerse them, have them feed visual information, which we process like 60% faster than any other kind of information, and actually have people immerse themselves in that data, in the documents, in the project, in the meeting, in the virtual tour, in the content, whatever, and be able to do that.
I get that idea, but my question is, how can I take this idea to end customer?
So that's why we've created this Explore SharePoint Spaces. I invite you to look through all of the content that's on there, because it actually shows you how customers are going to use this in the future too. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this session, is to help prepare, right, what you need to do from an intranet perspective. So I would invite you to read through the content that we have there too.
Yeah, I'm aware of that content, but I think...
Okay. Okay, can we sideline it, because it's obviously, so let me get this gentleman here, sorry.
In our company, we have people who use SharePoint every day, all day.
Yeah.
Are you able to add Excel documents, PDFs, Word documents to share and have your team still view them in that 3D space?
So we want to make sure that the experiences that we are building is actually useful. Like right now, reading in VR is really, really hard. Like it strains your eye very much. And it's not a joy. It's actually not a joy. We tried doing that. It's not a joy reading a 20-page Excel or 20-page Word document in VR, right? So what we want to do is we want to present you with the information in a way that it actually makes sense for you. If you're going through the pain of creating something and viewing it on a headset, it better be different and unique in a way that you're not able to do it on a flat screen, right? So we are experimenting with a few preview modes that actually make sense. or using Excel as a supporting document for the 3D visualization, which makes sense viewing it in VR, right? So we're trying to incubate some ideas where, yes, you can add your Office content and 2D files, but in a way that actually makes sense and that is different enough from what you can do on a flat screen like this one.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, so you can actually build space. So I'll repeat the question, sorry for the recording. Is there a plan to build spaces into any kind of template, not just a communication site, right? That's a great question. So you can build a space actually, in fact, anywhere. We think it has much more correlation probably with the what you can do with the communication site, but you could certainly build one in a team site. You could certainly build one on the news page or anywhere else that you might want to put it. So the classic part, no, we're not going to do that.
That's why she said go to modern.
Yeah, it's like a modern. It's all about modern people, right? So yeah, definitely modern sites. Sorry.
Yes.
It's a bit of a no-brainer to obviously hit 3D objects and VR environments and stuff. But what about the more traditional SharePoint kinds of connectivity? So I envisage, for example, the image from the Ford guys building their Ford car.
Yeah.
Being able to walk over to a library and then connecting to SharePoint from there immediately.
Exactly.
Are these sort of things in your roadmap? I realize they're not going to be here and I'm not asking you to confirm,
Yeah.
but the more traditional role of getting to data, getting to libraries, getting to documents,
Yeah,
you see that as part of the process too?
Yeah, I think we definitely see that. The wonderful thing about creating these immersive environments is I can actually have something that looks like a workshop or a studio or a lab or whatever I want to actually portray that. And we might have done this in the past where we've seen something that you might have something that looks like somebody's office, for example, right? I've got content that's on the desk, right? I've got content that's up on the bookshelves. I've got things up on the wall, for example. And that gives me a one place for my project team who may be located wherever across the world, right? And actually going into that immersive environment and be able to express the same thing. And so the idea of, yeah, I can mix in this 2D and 3D content, it's definitely part of what we're doing. As Vidya said, it's really hard right now to read in VR, and that's true for any VR technology, but it's not the point of being able to collect all that information together and to see it very quickly and be able to quickly move through that content so I can explore, like, you know, there's 1,000 PowerPoint decks, or I can flick through that information very quickly. Definitely all part of it too.
And will the headset be able to read content to you?
So that's a good question.
Okay, well obviously you've thought about that.
Yeah.
So well, that's fine. I get that.
We did play around with voice integration a bit, right? So instead of, that was one of our approaches, because reading in VR is so hard, we thought about, okay, how about we use Azure text-to-speech and then plug in a bot sort of thing that will follow you around and read wherever it needs to. So we have incubated with a few ideas, but again, we want to progressively release things so that it doesn't feel super overwhelming, and we also want to make sure we test it out well at our end before launching
I
it.
guess the real risk here is doing something for the sake of it, just because they've got a headset on, let's do this, rather than actually it being of any use, value.
That's why we're trying to really connect it to what you're doing already and see this as another way to express the content that you already have and obviously use it for the right purposes. But we want to make sure that you have enough adequate time basically to prepare and think about how this would be useful in your specific organization.
And finally, when you do SharePoint static, I'll look forward to the update.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to. Thanks. All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.